Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Scotland's Rural College Virtual Open Week and today's session on work-based learning. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We know this is a busy time of the year for everyone, particularly given the current climate, but I hope that today you will leave with a better understanding of work-based learning and more specifically the modern apprenticeship across Scotland's Rural College. My name is Chris Stockwell and I'm the School's Training and Work-Based Learning Officer for the North Faculty at SRUC, where my remit is to coordinate the delivery of education in schools, our training delivery and apprenticeships for the faculty. I'm currently sat at home here in Aberdeenshire. However, in normal times, my role would cover our Craveston campus in Aberdeen and our Elmwood campus at Cooper in Fife. However, for today, I'm going to be talking about the work-based learning across the whole of SRUC. So that's our three faculties in the north, in the southwest, and in the central, and that includes our 6 campuses. So my colleague at Craveston, Bridget Edmonston, said earlier in the week in a session that like this looked at careers for careers advisors and teachers, that never has the rural industry been so attractive as a study option and ultimate career choice for school leavers. Really reflecting on how COVID has meant that people are more aware of where their food comes from. And I really echo that, but I also believe that in today's session, we have a really good combination, not just the rural industry that Bridget spoke about, but becoming more attractive, but also the really important role that apprenticeships can play, particularly in helping our recovery from COVID. Both Scottish Government and the funding councils are now more than ever seeing apprenticeships as a high priority and really investing in our future workforce. I just want to back that up by reading a quick quote from Jamie Hepburn, the Scottish Government Minister for Business, Fair Work and Skills, where he says, apprenticeships are essential in our COVID-19 recovery. We firmly believe that apprenticeships are an essential way to help people begin or progress their careers, while enabling employers to invest in their workforce and provide the skills that we need both now and in the future. They will be even more important as we enter the recovery phase of COVID. So now's a good time, I believe, to combine both rural and apprenticeships at Scotland's Rural College. So I'm now going to move over to my presentation, where I say we'll look at that. So Bridget, if you could put my slides up, thank you. Okay, so my presentation this afternoon will look at what is work-based learning. We'll look at apprenticeships in particular, and those modern apprenticeships. We'll look at how they differ from our other courses, and we'll look at some of the subjects on offer, and then I'll just touch on the SVQ and SCQF levels of some of these modern apprenticeships. There's sometimes a bit of confusion between the levels, and then we'll have opportunity for any questions at the end. If you want to submit any questions, you can type them into the question box on your computers, and Bridget will collate them together and ask me at the end of the presentation. Okay, so what is work-based learning? Well, at SRUC we use the phrase "it's earn while you learn." It's really an opportunity to do practical on-the-job training in the workplace, where you're developing skills whilst gaining the experience that the employers want and often working towards a qualification. So work-based learning can include apprenticeships, can include work-based work experience, and things like volunteering. But what we're going to look at is the most formal and structured of these, which is the apprenticeships. So if we look at apprenticeships, we've got various levels of apprenticeships, and they're highlighted in this slide in yellow. Into schools, we have the foundation apprenticeships. So these are at SCQF level 5 and 6. And then at the bottom of the slide, we've got the sort of apprenticeships as they sit sort of outside of once pupils have left school. So at SCQF level 4, we have pre-apprenticeships. Currently, we have a pre-apprenticeship in agriculture, which is offered across SRUC. This is in partnership with Ringlink Machinery Ring in the north, with the Borders Machinery Ring in the south, and with Taff Valley in the southwest. And this is a 6-month work experience on a farm where they also do a certificate of work readiness, and the hope then for progression onto something like a modern apprenticeship. So the modern apprenticeships sit at SCQF level 5 to 7, and then at sort of HND and degree level, we then also have technical apprenticeships, and also professional or graduate apprenticeships right up to SCQF 10 and 11. But it's really these modern apprenticeships that we're going to focus on this afternoon. That's what we deliver from here at SRUC. So again, what is a modern apprenticeship? Well, like my description of work-based learning, it's really it's combining a real job with a structured program of learning, and ultimately at the end leading to an industry recognized qualification. So the big difference between apprenticeships and our normal sort of college campus-based activity is the apprentice must be in employment. That's generally sort of full-time employment. The main criteria, though, is that they have enough hours really to fulfill the requirements of doing the modern apprenticeship. But as I say, that is generally in full time, or at least I think about sort of 30 hours a week. And so they're in employment. The employer would be expected to support the apprentice whilst undertaking this training, including any sort of off the job training element. So we'll come on to it later, but there is from time to time sort of day release or block release for some courses on one of our campuses. So if we look at modern apprenticeships in more detail, we're going to look at the frees with this slide really. On the left hand side, we've got the free components which make up a modern apprenticeship, and on the right we've got a freeway sort of partnership or agreement. So those free components on the left hand side, to complete a modern apprenticeship, the apprentice will do an SVQ at either level 2 or 3. The SVQ is really the competence-based qualification that they do. They will then have a requirement to do core skills. So these are really the skills and abilities which everyone needs in their workplace. So quite often on a lot of courses, that they include an element of core skills. These are things like numeracy, ICT, communication, working with others, problem solving, that sort of thing. But what we try and do is obviously teach them in the context of the workplace. So numeracy won't be like a maths lesson that they'll be used to at schools or academies. And then the third component of the modern apprenticeship is the enhancement training courses. These are nationally recognised and industry specific training, and depending on the subject of the modern apprenticeship you're doing, that might be one training course, might be two training courses, and they might say one of them has to include first aid, for example. So certainly in agriculture, then you have to do two enhancements, one of which is emergency first aid, and then one other. And that one other can then be anything from pesticide application, tractor driving, ATVs, so the quad bikes, manual handling, foot trimming. It's a range of different industry specific training courses in, obviously suiting whatever subject that you're studying. So on the right hand side, as I say, this is the modern apprenticeships are very much a freeway partnership. So a freeway agreement, a freeway contract, or say a freeway partnership. And that's really between the modern apprenticeship, SRUC as the training provider, and the employer. And it very much is about agreeing the delivery between the three parties. So it might be in some of the SVQs that you have both mandatory and optional units. The optional units then allow you to choose units which are most suited to the place where you're working. So that would then be obviously an agreement between the apprentice, what they want to do, and the employer as to whether that is agreeable for the workplace. So this next slide just looks at really how modern apprenticeships are different from normal campus-based courses. So I covered the first sort of big difference before, and that's that the apprentice has to be employed. So it's a real paid job. They're getting paid by the employer. The other big differences are we don't always follow a normal academic year. So the course doesn't necessarily start in an August or September. They may start in a block at any time. So maybe a January start, or might be an October start, or we may well in some areas have a rolling start, meaning that you can actually sign up at any point throughout the year. That very much depends on the next box I'll just mention, which is the mode of study. So that can be that you can either be 100% in the workplace. So the assessors will always come out to you in the workplace, and you don't need to come to campus at any point. That obviously then suits a rolling start where you could just join at any point. We also can have a sort of day release or block release. So that's where you would be expected to come to a campus for a specific period of time. So it might be, in the case of a day release, it might be for say 1 day, maybe a week over 26 weeks. We tend to, in that case, follow more of the academic pattern by giving sort of the Easter sort of holidays, Christmas holidays, summer holidays. So the 26 weeks will fall into more of an academic calendar. Or the block release can be, again, in campus, on campus, for maybe a week at a time, maybe 2 weeks at a time, or in some cases, like the land-based engineering that we offer, for example, it's 3 week blocks. So you're in campus for 3 weeks on 3 separate occasions in the year. And so really depending on what the subject is will very much dictate that mode of study and therefore the start date. As I say, the courses don't necessarily always run to an academic year, so the duration of them might be for 12 to 18 months. So they are definite sort of 12-month calendar, year rather than an academic year, which might only be from August, September through to a May or June. I say modern apprenticeships will be the full sort of 12, 18 months in some cases, or 24 months in other cases. Again, very much depending on the subject that you choose. So again, agriculture, for example, is a 12-month program. The horse care or equine, slightly more sort of practical with riding skills and all that sort of thing involved. Slightly more units involved in that one, so that's a 24-month program. So how are apprenticeships assessed? Well, as I said in that the 3 components diagram on the previous slide, you have to achieve all of the SVQ units plus the core skills and the enhancements to complete the overall modern apprenticeship. And I say the SVQ units will generally be a mixture of sort of mandatory ones which you have to do, and then some optional ones allowing you to have a choice. Assessments, again, depending on the sort of method of study that we mentioned before, the mode of study that we mentioned before, can either be in the workplace or they can be in college or both. So obviously, say if it's completely work-based, then all your assessments will be out in the workplace. If you're on block release, you may do some assessments in the workplace, but you're likely to do the vast majority on campus within your blocks. The apprenticeship, as I said before, with the SVQ is very much competency based. So the apprentice has to show that they can competently perform tasks to a required standard, and that's a required standard set within the SVQ. They may utilize a number of assessment tools to provide the best opportunity to demonstrate that competency. So it might be purely by observation. So the assessor observing the candidate doing a particular task. That may include a bit of verbal questioning as well. So a bit of more of a discussion, a question-answer discussion. It might be a little bit of sort of written answers within a portfolio. So any apprentice tends to have a portfolio, and this is where their sort of their evidence and competencies are recorded, really. Or it may be by what we call a witness testimony, which is where the employer may well observe the apprentice doing particular tasks. Obviously, for certain situations, the assessor can't always be in the workplace at all times and hasn't always got the time to watch a candidate doing a long, job, for example. So it may be that we can get the employer or a supervisor on the particular workplace to again actually provide that witness testimony that yes, they have seen the apprentice competently perform the required task. So what subjects do we offer modern apprenticeships in at SRUC? The list here in the middle is the ones that I say we have across SRUC. So within agriculture, we have the level, the SVQ level 2 or SCQF level 5. So I'll come to those confusing levels a bit later on. But we have the level 5 is an SVQ in agriculture, and there are those option units allowing you to pick slightly more livestock or slightly more crops or a mix of both. When you go to level 6, SCQF level 6, the actual SVQ can then be more specialist. So you can do an SVQ in crops or an SVQ in livestock or a mix of the two, or you can even do an SVQ in poultry. We also in the Southwest have a dairy apprenticeship, which is where we really specialize the agriculture apprenticeship, to meet the needs of the dairy industry. So the enhancements and everything will be very much, the dairy training courses. A lot of the agriculture are 12 to 18 month programs, and depending on the campus, will either be work-based, 100% work-based, or there is the option in the Southwest at Barony to do a block release. But from Aberdeen and Oakridge, they're work-based. Although I say they're 100% work-based, we may occasionally bring groups onto campus to do things like I mentioned, the emergency first aid enhancement, or they do a bit of health and safety and manual handling and that sort of thing. So there may on occasion be an opportunity to come to campus to do some of those more training or group courses really. The environmental conservation, this one is actually the MA is actually called Rural Skills, but the SVQ component of it is environmental conservation. So again, at both SVQ level 2 and SVQ level 3, there's the environmental conservation route. The forestry and arboriculture, the MA for this one is actually called trees and timber, and this is there's a couple of options you can do in the higher level 6, again the SVQ level 3, and that's to do more arboriculture, or an option to do a general woodland and forestry tree work, and we offer both of those options. The game and wildlife management, we currently run from our Elmwood campus, and again there's options there in terms of both upland or lowland game and wildlife management. The greenkeeping and sports turf at level 5, it's classed as greenkeeping. At level 6, it's classed as sports turf, but very much the managing of golf course greens and sports pitches, etc. The horse care or equine, at level 5, it is just called horse care. At level 6, it's horse care and management. So the higher level includes just a little bit more on the management emphasis. Horticulture, Again, we have just at level 5, it's just called horticulture. At level 6, it then gets called an SVQ in parks, gardens, and green spaces. So just opens it up more to reflect the workplaces that you're potentially working in. The land-based engineering, there's an option to look at engineering in terms of agriculture, so agricultural machinery. There's an option to look at arboriculture and forestry machinery, and an option to look at the ground care machinery. So you know, the mowers and that sort of thing that may well be used very much in the greenkeeping and sports turf courses. And again, we at the various campuses we offer all 3 of those options. And finally, there's the landscaping, and that one is at both levels. It's just a level 5 and level 6 in landscaping. This slide just tries to show where we operate some of the modern apprenticeships from. So we've got the list, that same list of courses I just had up before, or same list of subjects that I had up before, and I've split them now into the North faculty, so Aberdeen and Elmwood, the Central faculty at Oakridge, and the South and West faculty at Ayr and at Barony. So agriculture, so we do it all 3 of the campuses. The only slight difference, as I mentioned earlier, is at Barony, it's done by block release. So you go into campus and do more activity. That very much suits, because they've got the dairy units. That very much, as I say, suits the dairy apprenticeship in that particular part, but they do the general agriculture as well. The environmental conservation, that's run just from our Central faculty. Gamekeeping and greenkeeping, or the sports turf, both at our North faculty, both at Elmwood. Horticulture, again, across all 3 of the faculties. The horse care from Elmwood and from Oakridge, and the land-based engineering from Oakridge and Barony, and trees and timber in the forestry department at Barony campus. Although, just to add a bit of confusion to that to that table, depending on the subject and the mode of delivery, so what I said before as to whether it's 100% in the workplace, may mean that you don't necessarily have to be close to the campus that you study at. For example, if it's 100% in the workplace and you don't need to come back for campus 1 day a week or something, you can obviously live further away, and as long as we can get assessors to you, then it's possible you know, to do it that way. So, for example, just to give you a few examples, in greenkeeping, which we offer from Elmwood, we have apprentices at golf clubs in so Elmwood's in Fife, Cooper in Fife, but we have apprentices in Dumfries and Galloway at the Dumfries and Galloway Golf Club. We have apprentices up in Nairn, up in Thurso. In horticulture, again from Elmwood in Fife, we have apprentices up in Shetland. So, as I say, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be close to one of those campuses on the screen there. It really just depends on that mode of delivery, really, as I say, as to whether you need to be close to be at the campus 1 day a week or whatever. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we'll just touch on some of the benefits of a modern apprenticeship. So why do a modern apprenticeship as opposed to say a campus-based course? Well, obviously, again, it goes back to the phrase where I used earlier. You're earning while you're learning. So really, you're in employment, you're being paid, but you're getting a qualification at the end of the day as well. The other big advantage, you're getting paid for doing it, but there's also no tuition fees or or student loans. So you've no student loans to pay back at the end because your tuition fees are paid by the by Skills Development Scotland. Other advantages, obviously, as I said before, it's hands-on training. It gives the opportunity to put the skills that you're learning directly into practice. Hopefully helps gain more confidence in the working environment, helps build the knowledge, the experience and skills that ultimately employers and the industry want and need. And again, it's maybe that mix of practical work and classroom based learning. For businesses taking on employers, it's a great way to attract fresh ideas onto a business, and the apprenticeships can be tailored to the specific business. So there is the opportunity to select optional units to make it more relevant to the business, or perhaps look at modules which might be slightly different. Just going to touch on the employer responsibilities, just to sort of say be clear in terms of their role in that freeway partnership that I spoke about earlier. So the employer must provide a contract of employment. So you have to, if you're doing an apprenticeship, you have to be treated the same way as any other employer, i.e. you have that contract, you're being paid, you have your holiday entitlement, there's sick pay entitlement, overtime, etc., as there would be in any paid employment. Depending on the subject, may depend on from a contract of employment point of view as to the wages, for example, in agriculture and horse care, that comes under the agricultural wages. So the same way as any agricultural employers, that very much under say under the Scotland Agricultural Wages Order. The employer also has to acknowledge and give apprentices enough time to carry out their training plan, and also give them the time to attend any of the off the job learning. So obviously, if that is a day a week or the block release, they have to have agreed obviously in advance that you can take those periods of time to go to campus. As with any employment, again, as with the contract of employment, the employer is responsible for the health and safety and support of the apprentice, so that again they must ensure that the appropriate PPE is provided and there's a safe working environment. And we also do, as part of that's the sort of sign up agreement at the beginning, we just look to make sure that there are some welfare facilities on in the workplace, so there is somewhere for the apprentice to go for their lunch, or there is hand washing facilities and toilets and that sort of thing for the employers. And the employer really makes sure that that they can carry out specific tasks to the right standards. So again, it's ensuring that the apprentice gets the right experience in the in the workplace. And again, really, the employer acts as a mentor, really, to the apprentice or the student. So investing time and effort in the apprentice, in their learning and development, throughout their time, not just on the course, but maybe after they've completed, and hopefully carry on employment with the business. Role of SRUC as the training provider is to really facilitate some of that training and in-college learning. It's the assessment part of the skills. I say maybe from time to time we will ask the employer to get involved in a few sort of witness statements. But most of the time it's SRUC as the training provider that do all the assessment. SRUC are there to support both the employer and the apprentice, and SRUC very much manages the contracts relating to the funding and achievement and milestones, and so SRUC will liaise directly with Skills Development Scotland for all that part of the modern apprenticeship. As I said earlier, I just wanted to touch on the SVQ levels and the SCQF levels, because I know myself in this presentation I've been guilty of talking about level 2s, level 5s, level 3s, level 6s. So I just wanted to explain the differences there in those levels. When we talk about a level 2 or a level 3, we're referring to the SVQ element of the modern apprenticeship. And those, so for example, an SVQ level 2 sits in the SCQF framework as a level 5. And then the SVQ3 sits at an SCQF level 6. Occasionally, the SVQ3s can also be at level 7, just to confuse things again. But in most of the subjects that I've spoken about today, an SVQ3 will be at SCQF level 6. The only difference is the environmental conservation SVQ3 is actually at level 7. But so on the most part, an SVQ2 relates to a level 5, and an SVQ3 relates to a level 6 on the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework. What we're hoping, or what sort of certainly any new frameworks being developed, we're starting to refer to them more by the SCQF level. So hopefully in future we will be to make them more comparable, and then people know where they sit in the normal sort of school curriculum or colleges and universities courses. So we will very much hopefully be talking about them more as a MA in agriculture at SCQF level 5, or an MA in agriculture at SCQF level 6, rather than calling it an MA agriculture level 2, which we might have done previously. The final slide I've got really is to look at progression. So once you've done a modern apprenticeship, what are the progression opportunities? For this, I'm going to look at agriculture as an example. My background is very much in the agriculture education, so apologies if I keep referring to agriculture all the time, but that's what I'm most familiar with. So on the left-hand side, in the red boxes, shows the options for the pre-apprenticeship or the modern apprenticeship. So a pupil straight from school could perhaps start a pre-apprenticeship at a CQF level 4. They can then progress on to the modern apprenticeship at CQF level 5. Once they've completed that, they can then either stay on in the workplace and move up to the modern apprenticeship at SCQF level 6, or they can go into full-time, more campus-based courses by moving, say, to the NC or HNC, HND, eventually progressing to a degree, honours degree. So you'll see from the arrows there's plenty of opportunities to move around really in the pathway. And so this is an example from agriculture, but a lot of our courses, we also do the campus-based full-time courses such as the NCs, HNCs, etc. Okay, so we'll now stop for opportunity for any questions before I just have a few closing remarks. And so yeah, Bridget, is there any questions come in?
Yeah, Chris, there are. There's quite a few questions actually, so that'll keep you on your toes.
All right.
So the first question is, what age do you have to be a modern apprentice?
Okay, we mostly look at modern apprenticeships to be from 16. However, the actual the wording from Skills Development Scotland is that they are the age where they've left school. So occasionally we may get some January leavers who might still be 15, but they'll be 16 in the coming months, afterwards. As long as they have officially left school and the school have agreed for them to leave in January, then they can, I say, go slightly before 16, but generally it's 16, and there's no actual maximum age. It tends to be because of government funding. There tends to be more in the 16 to 25 category, but we do have apprentices in their 30s, in their 40s. I think there's one even in their 60s, but vast majority will be in that 16 to 19, 16 to 20, 24 age group really.
Okay, Chris, thank you. How do you find an employer if you want to do a modern apprenticeship?
Okay, that's a good one again, because I say you do have to be employed to do an apprenticeship. So there is a Scottish government website called Apprenticeships Scotland, where you can go on there and you can look if anybody. Sometimes employers will advertise looking for people to do apprenticeships. So you can look on there. Always, I would say, contact the college, contact SRUC. We very much being in the land-based sector, we work very, very closely with industry, with employers. So, if any of the employers looking to take on the apprentice, they will probably come to us, first as well. And then obviously these days with things like social media, things like Facebook and that, very successful in getting, in getting things. So if you just were to post somewhere that you're looking to do an apprenticeship, then you can often get employers through there. Or again, it's by contacting the college. We can put you in touch with, different things. For example, if it was a dairy related one, then there's a Scottish Dairy Hub, and they're a good place to liaise between the apprentice and the employer. So both parties can go there, almost looking for an employer or for an apprentice.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. The next question is, do you have to go into the campus?
Again, that very much relates to one of the first couple of slides I did on that mode of study, really, as to whether the course is day release or block release. In that case, yes, you will have to go onto campus. If it's completely work-based, then no, you don't. As I say, from time to time, there may be right at the beginning of the course, it might just make sense to come to campus for a couple of days just to get your portfolios and maybe do a manual handling course or do your first aid course. And that's obviously far easier to do in a group on a campus than it is to do sort of individually out in the workplace. But in some subjects, it's very much limited by the by what's on offer. In other subjects, the popular subjects, more like agriculture, so you do actually have the choice within Scotland. So if you want the block release element, it's more in from Barony. If you want the work-based, it's from Aberdeen or Oakridge.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. The next question is, what training courses can I undertake as part of my apprenticeship?
Okay, again, that can be generally within the sort of modern apprenticeship framework. There will be an example list of sort of industry recognized training courses, is how they tend to say them. So they might be sort of a Lantra certificate, maybe an SRUC certificate, maybe a City and Guild certificate. But there's generally a list, and they will obviously be very related to the subject that you're particularly doing. So obviously it's a training course very relevant to the job. And as I said right at the beginning, this is where that freeway agreement, that freeway partnership, because the choice of the sort of training course that you do is very much your choice as the apprentice, but also what would be most useful for the employer as well. So it might be on a farm that they get you to do a material handler, so you could operate a load all, or maybe do your quad bike ATV certificate. So again, you can be competent at driving the quad bikes.
Okay, Chris. The next question is, are there any particular subjects that someone should study to do an apprenticeship?
Not really, in terms of there's no, it's not like a sort of a campus based. If you're going on to do a HND or degree, we may well say yes, you definitely need to do English, maths, or a science or something. Because the modern apprenticeships are more competency based, we're really looking for a confidence and ability, a desire really to want to study in the workplace. Again, depending on the subject that you're doing, there may be some subjects that would be beneficial in terms of the career you might be looking to go into, but generally no, there aren't any real subjects that will be mandatory to have.
Okay, thank you, Chris. The next question is, are MAs, I think you've kind of covered this, but are MAs targeted at people at the start of their careers? For example, just leaving school, or can anyone apply? I think you've pretty much covered this, but if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, so MAs tend to be the start of careers. I mentioned earlier in the slide just on apprenticeships in general, there are like technical apprenticeships at the higher SCQF levels, and professional and graduate apprenticeships more at sort of degree levels. So by nature, they would probably tend to attract, the older apprentices, rather than the modern apprenticeships tend to be the younger age groups. But as I said before, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jack, for that question. And Jack's got another question here. Where can we find out more about what might be involved in each MA?
Okay, there is a section on the website. If you go on to the SRUC website and look at the subject that you want to study, and then there should be a link there to the particular course. So if you go on to horse care, for equine or horse care, for example, choose equine by subject, and then you will get a list of the available courses that SRUC offer, and then just click on to the MA level 5 or MA level 6, and that will give you more details about it. And also, just before we finish now, I'm going to put a slide up, which is the contact details to contact a particular person for the faculty that the course was at. So if you saw on that table earlier one of the courses that you like, and it's at a particular campus or faculty, so I'll put an email address to contact that particular person.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that question, Jack. The next question is, can I change my employer during the MA programme? You
can, but again, for a smooth transition, you really, you need to find employment pretty soon afterwards, and the new employer again must obviously be happy to continue the apprenticeship on. So it must be a condition again, really. If you finish with one employer and looking to start with another, the condition is really that they're happy to take you on continuing your apprenticeship. As far as Skills Development Scotland are concerned, you must be in employment. So if you leave employment and don't have anywhere to go, unfortunately, that would then be the end of the modern apprenticeship. But if you can get employment straight away and sort of continue, that yes, we can continue.
Okay. The next question is, what if I'm not interested in going to university, but I would still like to get higher qualifications? Where can I get more information on technical and professional apprenticeships?
Okay, there is the Skills Development Scotland website. They have a section on the different those different apprenticeship levels. So they'll explain what a foundation, what a modern, what a technical, what a graduate apprenticeship is, and then they link to the actual frameworks, the subjects that you can do those in as well. And there's also the Apprentice Scotland website as well. But all apprenticeships in Scotland generally come under Skills Development Scotland, so there'll be a good starting point to look at the SDS website.
Okay, Chris, thank you. What can you please tell me more about the forms of assessing a modern apprentice? Will I have to write essays, make presentations, etc.?
No, that's a good point, actually. No, on the slide I touched on with assessing, I might have mentioned there's some written questions. There'll be a little bit of writing in terms of there may be some questions and you have to just put short answer answers to in a written form, but there isn't 3,000 word essays or assignments to do, and there isn't exams to do. It is very much the competency based. So more, can you do particular tasks to the desired level, really. So, you know, yes, there is a portfolio that I spoke about, and, you know, we're trying to move some of those portfolios away from actual folders onto computer. So, you know, more online material. But no, there isn't sort of assignments or exams.
Okay, Chris, just 2 more questions. What steps should I take to start my adventure of an MA?
Okay, I think the first is to look, obviously, say at the different subjects that are available, and that's, if you're looking at the rural industry, look at the SRUC website. If you're looking in general, again, as I said, look at the SDS website and look at sort of the frameworks which are available. And then really, yeah, it's a case of making contact, trying to find an employer, trying to find somebody that you know, will take you on to do the apprenticeship, and then, you know, contact the college, and we can then start the ball rolling in terms of you know, that freeway conversation between the three parties, and then can get you enrolled and that sort of thing, and get started.
Okay, Chris, and then one last question. Who decides what I'm taught during an MA, my employer or SRUC?
A bit of both, in terms of there's the framework which really sets out the SVQ that you have to do, and the SVQ there set out the assessments that you sort of have to do. But as I say, you have the choice of making it more sort of tailored by choosing the particular units that are most relevant to your work situation. So a bit of both in a way. The SVQ very much states what have to, you know, the level that you have to be competent at, and, you know, very much states SRUC will then have the assessments for those, but the choice comes really, as I say, in the units that you actually that you take, and also sometimes, you know, we can discuss the most appropriate way to get the evidence for it, whether it is for us to come and observe the apprentice doing, or whether it is for the employer to provide the witness statement of the apprentice doing it. You know, and sometimes it's about collecting evidence as you go as well. So it might be, if you're doing a feeding livestock module or something, collecting evidence of sort of when a feed delivery's come and there's a label for a feed bag or something, you know, it's collecting that sort of thing, putting it in your portfolio. And then there's you know, there's evidence that you've looked at, right, what do feeds contain, what are the specific nutrients in that feed, and so on. So sorry, that's very long-winded, but hopefully answered a little bit of the answer. You're on mute, I think, Bridget.
Thank you. That's us come to the end of our questions.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. I just want to finish with 2 very quick slides. One was, as I promised, in to the answer to one of the questions that was raised, is, you know, who do you contact? So there's myself for the North faculty, and then my counterparts in the Central faculty is Hilary Morton, and in the South and West faculty is Diane Smith. All our addresses, email addresses, end in @sruc.ac.uk. So it's really just either remembering Chris Stockwell, Hilary Morton, or Diane Smith. So if you have any more say questions or anything, you can either look at the website or contact myself, Hilary, or Diane. And I'm quite happy if you can't remember what campus it's at or anything like that, just contact me and I can obviously forward it on to the right person. The final slide is really just a plug for people in the Northeast. A quick plug for my colleagues at Aberdeen. They're working on their Saturday to give a talks about their particular subject areas. So it would be great if you could, if you haven't already logged in and registered, tomorrow morning there's discussions on rural business management, agriculture, the exciting new course on offer at Crowston, the Equine Studies, wildlife and conservation management, and animal care and veterinary nursing. So that just leaves me really to say thank you all very much for listening in this afternoon. I would normally say have a safe journey home, but probably most of you are like me, sat at your computers at home already. There will just be a very quick feedback survey in the question and answer box. If you could please fill that feedback survey in. It will only take you sort of 30 seconds or so, but that's really useful to us for how you found these sort of sessions. Bridget will also email a link to that survey and a copy of this presentation to all of you that have registered anyway. So thank you all very much for your time. I hope you found it useful, and I say please contact us if there's anything else. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.